Okay, so in this video we're going to be talking about Volkswagen Group's recent statements saying that they'll be essentially going all in on EVs as soon as 2024, and we'll discuss what kind of threats that may pose for Tesla as the current market leader in EVs. Just before the video starts, guys, if you could take a quick second to drop a like on this video, it'd be very much appreciated and it helps out the channel a lot. So on March 16th, Volkswagen Group, who represent not only Volkswagen, but also Audi, Bentley, Porsche, Seat and Skoda, said that they plan to transition their business to something called an SPP model as they transition towards EVs. So SPP stands for Scalable Systems Platform, and what it essentially means is that the Volkswagen Group will create a single kind of standard, a single manufacturing process for the core components of their vehicles across each of their brands. And this will allow them to have greater synergy across all their brands and also leading to greater economies of scale, which will reduce their costs. So the way it currently works at a high level is each of these different kind of brands that are under the Volkswagen Group make their own kind of variations of these drivetrains. So it's not a kind of single standard manufacturing process across each of the brands. But seeing as battery technology is kind of more standardized than the kind of different drivetrains that you may have, it makes more sense for them to go towards a SPP kind of model where they can kind of standardize that manufacturing process and use it across all of their brands. Their current plan is to be fully transitioned to an SPP model by as soon as 2024 or 2025. Now they plan to kick this off with a project called Project Artemis. They haven't gone into much detail in the articles I've read on this Project Artemis, but there is this image right here that was on the article, so maybe this is something to do with it. Looks pretty cool, but again, we can't see too much detail there, so I won't go too much into it. Now the Volkswagen Group already do make a selection of electric vehicles. Some of them I'll show here, such as the Volkswagen ID range, the Audi e-tron Q4, and the Skoda Enyaq. None of these, I think, personally compete with Tesla. Obviously, they do have some attractive factors, and I can see why some people would buy these. But as a whole, I don't think these cars currently compete with what Tesla has to offer. And when I say that, I'm of course not just talking about the aesthetics of these cars. I'm talking about how competitive they are on price, the battery technology, the autonomous software, the over-the-air updates that Tesla has to offer. I just think Tesla right now has much more to offer than what these electric vehicles have that I just showcased. So the CEO gave an interesting comment about Tesla. Obviously, Tesla was brought up when they said they were transitioning to EVs, and he was asked for a comment on that. So the CEO went on to say, Tesla is not only about electric vehicles. Tesla is also a very strong software company. They really run the car as a device, and they are making good progress on the autonomous thing. So that is a direct quote, and I'll give more comment on that in a second. But then he also said, but yes, we are going to challenge Tesla. So now I may be reading into this too much, but I think the way that the CEO here addressed the autonomous technology that Tesla is working on is a little bit flippant. So again, he referred to it as they are making good progress on the autonomous thing. So to me, the way I picked that up was that he's kind of dismissing the value of the autonomous technology. Maybe it's something they feel like they can't compete in just yet, so they decided to kind of push that to the side and just focus on creating the electric vehicles and worrying about the kind of autonomous kind of features later. Again, Tesla has so much more data and is so much more far ahead in terms of autonomy than Volkswagen is. So again, maybe he's just kind of dismissing that to the side right now and trying to not highlight it as an important thing. Now again, I won't stay on that for too long because I think I may be just reading into it too much, but I just thought it was interesting the way he kind of phrased and addressed the autonomy part there. Okay, so now that we have an idea of how Volkswagen plans to compete against Tesla, let's kind of address the kind of threat that I think they may pose. So personally, I think that we're only kind of at the beginning of the world adoption of EVs right now. I mean, a good way to look at this is have a look at some of your friends or neighbors' cars and see, are they EVs? Now, some of you may say, yes, they all have EVs, but for me, I know personally, there's not too many EVs going around. Sure, I see some of them on the roads, but generally most people I know do not own an electric vehicle. But I think as countries and governments start to move towards having lower emissions and start to move towards a more sustainable kind of future, I think that we'll really start to see a mass adoption of electric vehicles, and that will lead to a lot of demand, of course. And when we think about the ICE vehicles, the internal combustion engine vehicles, when you look on the roads, do we only see one manufacturer of all these vehicles? Definitely not. In the vehicle market as a whole, not just the EV market, I think it's ripe for competition, and there needs to be some competition in order to satisfy the demand. There's no way that Tesla alone, especially right now, would be able to meet the world's demand for EVs. So when we hear that competition is coming, of course it's coming, and of course there is room for it. When we think of Tesla's overall mission statement, which is essentially to accelerate the world's adoption into more sustainable energy, I think they would be happy to see other automakers starting to make some strides in the right direction towards meeting this goal. Now, of course, their main objective is obviously to make their profits and grow their business, but I think they always knew competition was coming, and it's not the end of the world. It's obviously something they expected, and I think overall it is a good thing because, as I said, it's achieving their mission statement as well. And pretty much since Tesla's inception, we've seen the articles of competition is coming, so it's not surprising to see them coming around again, albeit I think it's coming a lot sooner now than people previously predicted. But yeah, in the next coming years, there will of course be competition. But as I said, I think there's plenty of room in the market, plenty of demand in the EV space, that I think there will definitely be room for plenty of competitors. And I still think Tesla will come out on top. I mean, even looking at Volkswagen here, they said by 2024 or 2025, they hope to be able to transition to this fully and start to catch up to Tesla. But they have to remember that Tesla is not a stationary target. Tesla is growing at an exponential rate. It is a moving target. It's going to be very hard to hit. So as Volkswagen are catching up, Tesla are just getting further and further ahead. Now that being said, I do think Volkswagen will do very well in the EV space, but they do still have a long way to go, and I think they have a lot to prove in the EV space. I mean, it's a very hard thing for a traditional company like Volkswagen to start transition to electric vehicles. There's a lot of legacy stuff there that needs to be kind of decommissioned and start to move over to EVs, whereas Tesla was built solely for EVs. So they have a very unique business model that you can just order your car online. There's no dealerships, none of that overhead, which allows them to constantly reduce their costs. So I myself wouldn't be surprised if for the coming years that we see Volkswagen selling these EVs at a loss as their business starts to transition more to EVs and they can start to take greater advantage of economies of scale. I believe Tesla is miles ahead of a lot of these other automakers in terms of first of all, their business model, how quickly they can implement these changes, especially with the over-the-air software updates. I think their battery technology and the way that which they're constantly improving that is amazing as well. And then of course we have their autonomy, which is really going to kick off this year when they bring out this subscription for drivers to be able to get that autonomous driving. And I think this dominance will continue for many years to come. However, I do see a downside with Tesla, of course, and that is with their production capacity constraints. And I do think they have some production quality issues that need to be addressed as well, which I know they are working on, but it's not great to see that on a brand new car, to see some of these panel gaps and things like that, but I know they're improving on that constantly. I think the production capacities Tesla will inevitably face will be a good way for competitors to come in and gain some market share. That is just inevitable in my opinion. And again, I think it's no harm because of course there's going to be competition in the EV space. As I said before, I think it would be impossible for one automaker to satisfy all of the demand in the EV space. But in summary, I think Tesla will continue to be the EV king for some time. I do think these competitors will start to catch up, but I think they're a long way away from that yet. But yeah, I'd love to know your comments on this in the comment section below. Let me know what automakers you think will have a big impact in the coming years. Let me know if you think Tesla is still king, some of its threats, opportunities, weaknesses. Let me know in the comment section below. If you could take a quick second to drop a like on this video as well, guys, if you enjoyed it, and if you could subscribe, that'd be very much appreciated.